Hey, what's going on, everybody? I just wanted to create a quick video on Angular forms and some of the things I've learned as I've dug into it. So Angular has two form APIs. They have a template-driven API and they have a reactive API. And which one you depends on the use case that you need the form for. Generally, template-driven, defined in your HTML file, and generally for more simple forms. The reactive is programmatically defined in your TS file, and it has more sophisticated parts to it to allow you to do more things. So I created a couple slides, wanted to go over them, then create a example in StackBlitz and see where we wind up. So like I mentioned, there's two form APIs, and every Angular form has an underlying model object that stores the form's data. Now, in the template-driven case, the model is created implicitly by Angular, but with the template-driven, it's created explicitly by us, the programmer. And so they're exposed as two different APIs. The template-driven, the difference is the forms are fully programmed in the components template, so the HTML file using the directives and model object is created implicitly by Angular. Now, the template defines the structure of the form, the format of its fields, and the validation rules. And you are limited because of the HTML syntax in your template file. This approach is generally only used for simple forms. Now, with the reactive forms, you can use more sophistication because you explicitly create the model in the TypeScript code and link the HTML template elements to that model's property using some of the reactive directives. Template-driven forms can only use directives in the components template, so the HTML file. These directives are included in the forms module, and you need to import the forms module in your root module. In many cases, that's your app module. Some of these directives are the ng model group, and ng form. And so let's quickly just go through them and see what they're all about. The ng form directive represents the entire form. It's basically like the border box of the form, and it represents everything about the form. And it automatically attaches to every form element, and it implicitly creates an instance of the form group that represents the model. And it also automatically discovers all child HTML elements marked with the ng model directive and adds their values to the form model object. And in many cases, you usually bind a local template variable to ng form in your form element, so you can access values inside the template. So binding ng form to the template, very easy. Just in most cases, depending on your use case, but in this use case, we just create a local template variable called temp var that's preceded with the #. That creates a local template variable that we're binding to the ng form object. Generally, again, done inside of a form element, and we haven't talked about this, but we will in just a second. The ng submit overrides the submit action on a button. So you create an arbitrarily named method in your component file. In this instance, it's on submit, and then we pass that local template variable, temp var, and add a value to it. And that allows us to get all the values of the form. And then right below that, temp var.value, and we're adding a JSON pipe, which is just a built-in Angular pipe that displays the data just like we have right here. So in this instance, the form, and we'll see it here in a minute, has a name of username, a social security number, and that is my real social security number, so feel free to get a bunch of credit cards and rack them up. I'll gladly pay it. Passwords group, and now this is a ng model group that we'll talk about here in a minute, but it basically just wraps these two fields together into one group. And again, name, password, value, that's my password for everything. So I mean, just hack my stuff. I don't care. An ng form intercepts the HTML's form submit event, and it prevents the submission. And so it emits that custom ng submit event, and so you can define the method in your class. And in this case, we just logged it to the console. And like I mentioned earlier, it's an arbitrarily named function, so you can call it whatever you want. In this instance, we called it on submit, and every time the ng submit event is emitted, that function is invoked. Template-driven forms, again, ng model. ng model marks the HTML element that should become a part of the form model. So in your HTML file, like I have down here, ng model, it's a lowercase n, not a capital N, and it ensures that the input field is included in the form model object. And it's very important that you use this name attribute, as it is essential to getting the value when that form is submitted. And the name attribute, again, is required to access the value in this code. Form API doesn't require a value assigned to the ng model or brackets around this attribute. Basically, you just use it as it is, and that takes care of everything. So the value of this input right here, the name. So if you call this template var dot value dot name, it'll display what's ever in this element, because we use this ng model to bind it to the ng form. And we'll see a use case of that here in a minute. ng form value property points to the JavaScript object that we saw in the console when we went over that slide, that holds the values of all the form fields. The value of the field's name attribute becomes the property name of the corresponding property in the JavaScript object, in ng form.value. So, like we mentioned, the ng form, the template reference variable plus the period value plus the name of the element that you want will give you the value that was inputted in that form. And the names of the classes that implement form directives are capitalized, but their name should start with the lowercase letter in the HTML templates. For example, we saw ng form with a capital N, but in the template, the HTML file, it's lowercase ng form. And now the ng model group, we saw this, and it's commonly used with like passwords and things where you need multiple related things together, and allows you to group form fields together, creates nested objects inside the object stored in the ng form.value, and all child fields of the ng model group become properties of the nested object. And we saw that back here with this passwords group right here. These are nested within this object, and we can get access to that if we template var.value.passwords group, and then either one of these name attributes right there will give us value to the value of those fields, which in this case it's 1, 2, 3, 4 on both of them. So where were we? So in this example with the ng model group, again we're declaring the form element with the local template variable temp var and binding that to ng form. Right below that, create a separate div with the ng model group that will bind these two elements right here to the ng model group. Name, password, again, p confirm. So if we want to get access to these in our method in the component, then it'd just be temp var dot value dot passwords or p confirm. And so the ng model group attribute requires a single value, which becomes a string value, which becomes a property name representing the nested form. And so accessing these values from the nested object, like we just mentioned, again, we can just use interpolation here, temp var.value.passwords right here, and .passwords. So that's going to display the value associated with this input element. and again the confirm password right here. So tempvar.value.passwords.p confirm, and so the ng model group again just gives you a nested object for reference. And so this slide basically just goes over all the different directives and lets you know or gives you a good idea of what they do. Again, we've already gone over all of these and let you use those for your reference. And so here's an example that I just created, and again I'll show you this in StackBlitz, which I use quite a bit for just messing around, and when I'm learning something I'll try and extract away all the details and just do something easy. So again, we have the form element, template var, local template variable, binding it to ng form, overriding the submit button, and it's going to call this arbitrarily named method in our component, and we're going to pass in the temp var, which is this local template variable, plus a value, and that's going to give us access to all the values in this form if we reference the name object. And so again, with the username, the name object's username. So if we want to console log that, it'd be tempvar.value.username. And over here, we just logged everything by console logging the tempvar.value, which will log the whole object of this form element. Social security number, name, again, social security number, and then the model group, passwords group. We got the name password, the name confirm, and then when we submit, again, that's going to get overridden by ng submit. It's going to call this method in our component, and we're going to log the data just by tempvar.value with the built-in Angular JSON pipe. So that probably gives you a pretty good idea of how to use the template variables. We'll get into reactive in the next recording, but like I mentioned here, the ng form is just basically the border of this whole of all these elements in the template. The ng model, we have to put the ng model on every single one of these input values, the username, social security number, password, and the confirm password, to get access to those. If we don't put it in there, it's not going to show up. And then again, we have the ng model group associated with the password and the confirm password. So again, we just need to make sure in lowercase letters when using the template-driven forms that we put the lowercase ng model, and that binds this input element to the form, and we can get access to it in our component. So our on submit form data, we're just console logging the form data. We're not getting into any validation or anything like that, just real quick and easy stuff. So I created a project on StackBlitz just to kind of give you an idea of this. And I mean, this is real basic, real simple, real easy. Go to StackBlitz, it's 100% free. And in my component, I just have the on submit form data, console logging it, and here, let's see, let's type in something here. So Holland _ Murphy, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And last time I checked, I had pretty good credits. So if you want to again go out there and apply for some credit cards, it should work. So we click submit, inspect, go into our console here, and we should see that username down here at the bottom. Yeah, so we see Holland Murphy right down here at the bottom. Now let's say we want to not do the Holland Murphy. Let's say, we want my social security number so we can get some credit cards. So let's fill this out again. Holland Murphy. My social 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know how I got that social, but it's real easy to remember. Submit, inspect, console, and we will see my social security number down here at the bottom. Yeah, so real quick, real easy to do, and feel free to go to StackBlitz, play around with a little bit, and then this is just the code we went over in the slide right here. So if you have any questions, leave a comment. If you loved it, subscribe. If not, thanks for watching.